to speak candidly with my team. I was afraid that my fears would translate to them and that they might become fearful too. We could lose the team, or we could lose their engagement, or their 110% that they all gave, because we had a really great team. And instead I alienated them. And so, how do we get to that place? Are there techniques we can use? Is it, how do we get to that place where we're not thinking that what we say is going to be a problem, rather than bring the team closer?
I think your insights are right. I think it's a balance, right? I mean, no one wants the CEO to be the chief confessional officer, where you're lamenting all of your needs on everybody, because then you are burdening people, right? And people then will question not just your confidence, but your survivability. So I do think it's a balance in all things. I would probably surround yourself with a group of leaders, your leadership team, that check several boxes, right? The first box is that they are a lockbox. That what is said in the room, behind closed doors, does not ever get out. That second, that you can be super transparent and you can share your fears and cultural challenges and cash flow, and that they can be creative innovators on how to make improvements. I think another is being transparent generally. People can handle bad news. What they can't handle is wrong news or no news. So with that kind of, public relations principle, you can build a great culture when you are being transparent. That you also can paralyze people with fear if they think that, payroll isn't coming next week. So you've got to be thoughtful and have some confidence that you can actually bounce ideas off of. By the way, not everything is everybody's need to know. Not everyone is on a need to know basis. So I think sometimes leaders get paralyzed by fear because they feel like they have to have it all put together and to know it all. You know what? Open your kimono to a certain level in your company. A couple of confidants that have different experiences than you do. Because I love this adage. Most leaders say they've got 30 years of experience. Okay, Doc Christine is 1 year of experience, often repeated 29 times. And so I think great leaders surround themselves with people with different types of experience, different levels of maturity, different backgrounds. You build a team of confidants where you can really just be raw and open, and then together, the odds that you're going to come up with a solution for everyone are like exponentially higher. Don't isolate yourself, because then you'll start making decisions in a vacuum, and rarely will that be useful for you, or for anyone for that matter.
Well, I love that. And, I think that there is a balance that we can find within ourselves. But one of the things that I found, I think was true for me as well, is I don't know how coachable I really was. My attitude was nobody understands the path I'm on, that, literally building a multi-million-dollar business from the ground up and managing a huge team, like no one's ever done that before, right? But the idea that there's isolation, and I'm a huge fan of community and masterminding, but also having the support in place so you don't have to unburden yourself with the team. And you touched on that a bit. And are there any principles or structure around that you find most effective for support from outside?
Well, I think you touched on it, right? I mean, every leader should probably have their own small board of directors. Typically people who are more seasoned than you, wiser, sages, right? People that have had more bankruptcies, they've had more successes, they're better culture, they're wiser, they're more traveled. All of that. I mean, I've always described this idea of friending up, where the people that I go seek advice, they absolutely are more seasoned than I am, typically by 10, 15, 20 years. So I've always ascribed to that idea of surrounding myself, typically outside the company, and had sounding boards. Different people that I could go to for different reasons. Here's a good example today. This morning I'm looking at a licensing deal. And so I called up one of my friends that is in a private equity company and talked to him about the tenets of a licensing deal. Tonight I have another conversation with a black belt master Six Sigma. He happens to be an engineer. I have another kind of a supply chain issue that I'm struggling with. And so I'm constantly seeking outside advice because I don't know it all. fact, increasingly, the more competitive the room gets, the less you do know. You've got to have a network of people that can also call you. That they're not just there for you, but you're there for them when they need it as well. That's kind of the circle of life.
Yes. And it really is, to me, the only way to get through any of what I call the Category 5 events that we all encounter, whether it's hurricanes, a death in the family, a business failure, financial distress. Everybody's gone through something. And so having that ability to recognize it and be able to lean in, and it's hard, I think, was for me before I recognized it, to ask for help. And so what I found in terms of a bridge was becoming someone who would be helpful first. And in turn, I could get what I want, what I needed. And, how do, in your view, with your expertise, how do we get started if we, are afraid to pick up the phone? It's a well-developed muscle, I think, with you, but it wasn't always, I guess.
That's probably right. I'm just arrogant enough to think I was always that way, but I'm sure you're right. Here's what I have learned in life. All that matters are relationships. That is every organization's most valuable asset. That is every individual's most valuable asset. Are you constantly nurturing and feeding your relationships? Whether it's people that are working for you, people that are working with you, people in your life that could use insights or a check-in from you. It's just having an abundance mentality where you're constantly nurturing your relationships so that they're there for those who need them and they're there for you when you need it. Now, there's a common human resource adage I'm going to debunk, and that is that people are an organization's most valuable asset. It absolutely is not true. People are not any organization's most valuable asset. It is the relationships between those people. Because when your Category 5 hurricane comes, what's going to be there for you is how people treat each other. Do you have transparent and honest relationships? Is your culture built on trust? Do you have free flow of information where people can say what they feel and without retaliation? That's really every leader's most valuable asset. Next to their reputation, it's their relationships. And I think it does require a level of humility for you to be able to reach out and admit when you're confused, admit when you're wrong. For me, it's kind of a badge of honor. I probably made 9 phone calls in the last, I've been working from 5 this morning. It's 5 o'clock in Utah, so for 12 hours, I have been out reaching out to people. Well, what do you think about this? Or what do you think about that? And people have been calling me. And I guarantee you I'm going to have a higher likelihood of my enterprise succeeding because I'm getting a lot of different perspectives. Now, not so many perspectives, but I'm paralyzed, right? Not just trying to seek feedback from anybody I pass in the hallway, but I'm thinking, who's the smartest person I know on this topic? Oh, crap, I haven't called them in 9 months. No, I have called them. I called them 3 weeks ago and asked them how they were doing, or I checked in on them. I'm constantly, hopefully genuinely, nurturing my relationships so that they know I'm there for them, and I know they're there for me. I do that pretty well.
I think that point needs to be underscored because that was one of the things I think that some of us may miss in this day and age of social media platforms, right? I have thousands of followers on all the platforms, and when it came to it, I couldn't get to anybody, right? I was trapped in my shelter for 24 hours, the roof blown off the house, and not able to communicate, and I had no plan. And I'm stuck. So I have to. I can't get to my 800 Facebook friends, my 5,000 LinkedIn contacts. Nobody's accessible. So we have to develop real relationships, human relationships, right? This idea that community is our connections is fallacious, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well said. You're exactly right. There's your public world and there's your private world. And I think in times of crises, which we all have them, whether it be something that happens in your personal life or your business life or your finances. I think the older I've got, I'm 52 now. 5 years ago, I never would have admitted my credit score was under 700. Right now, my credit score is under 700. I got 3 kids in private school. I got a big mortgage. I've got, business loans out. And right now, I proudly say my credit score is less than my SAT score. I never would have admitted that, 10 years ago. And right now, I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just, trying to build my business and my brand, and I think a lot of people find that level of transparency in me quite attractive. I wasn't always that vulnerable.
Yes. Well, I know exactly, and I feel that too, you know, that connection to somebody who's willing to be that frank. And because we've all been there, right? Anybody who's stretching out on a limb to do anything has seen their scores come and go, right? Dip and
now,
you know.
Listeners are wondering, really, is credit scores under 700? Yep, right now it is.
Okay, do credit scores? I might be thinking, do credit scores go above through 700? You know,
oh yeah, you can have like a. I think you have like an 840. I think it's the highest. Yes.
There you go. I don't know. I'm too much of a risk taker to ever know what that's like. But
I love it. I like you.
Yeah, no, I mean, me too, you too. It's such a refreshing thing to feel like there is support out there. There's a voice that speaks to what is really needed and that is living the talk, you know, and that is so appreciated. And, you know, for our listeners, what are some of the wisdom steps that you can share with us as we come to a close today?
Well, I'll share one. And
just one, no.
I'm sorry, say it again?
I said just one, no.
Well,
ready.
I think it's one big one, because I think I know both of our time is coming to an end. You know, I worked for Stephen Covey, of course, the author of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he passed away 9 years ago as a result of a head injury from a bicycle accident. But he's well known for this book, The 7 Habits. Of course, it sold, 40 million copies in 30 years. And a lot of times when I'm interviewed for the book on behalf of Dr. Covey, a journalist will call the book The 7 Habits of Highly Efficient People. And I'll stop them because the book is not called The 7 Habits of Highly Efficient People. It's The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Christine, there's a difference between being efficient and being effective. One's not better than the other. They just need to be deployed differently. So to all of your listeners, I want to remind you there's a time to be efficient and a time to be effective. Now, I'm a naturally very efficient person. I wake up at 4 each morning. I write my ink column from 4 to 5. I write my lecture from typically 5 to 7. I'm a dad from 7 to 8. I'm then, an executive vice president from about 8 o'clock until 6 o'clock. I'm a dad again from 6 to 8 in the evening. And then I write again in the evening time. I'm also married, and I also work for, my job, a lot of roles. I'm a very productive person. I like to get things done. And that actually has been the key contributor to my success, my efficiency mindset. I rake the yard, mow the lawn, wash the car by 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, and I'm ready for tennis by 8:30. The problem is I bring that efficiency mindset into my relationships, and you cannot be efficient with people. You can only be effective. Dr. Covey had this wise adage where he said, with people, fast is slow, and slow is fast. So to all of your leaders and all your listeners out there, be mindful of when to employ an efficiency paradigm. Some texting, social media, maybe some meetings, but rarely when it involves relationships. Never with your family. Never with your children or spouse, hopefully never with your mother-in-law, but certainly not when it comes to building relationships inside your organization. Turn off your phone, close your laptop, take off your glasses, take off that damn Apple Watch that keeps buzzing every time you're in a meeting and keep looking at your watch, and really check into your people. Know when to be efficient and know when to be effective.
That is fantastic, Scott. Thank you so much. Everybody, check out Scott's links in the show notes. Thank you so much, Scott Miller, for being with us today. It's been an incredible conversation.